Hello everyone, my name is Shambhavi. Hope you all are doing well. So now basically today we are going to discuss about the outcomes and the type 1 and type 2 errors. Okay. So previously we had seen about the null hypothesis and the alternate hypothesis. So this is a topic which actually continuous with the previous one only. Now I will be telling you about the outcomes and basically type 1 and type 2 errors which you basically have here. If you basically reject F naught, H naught, if you do not reject H naught, and all those things I'll be telling you here, right? So first of all, let me quickly put out the topic name, and that is and the outcomes and the type 1 and type. Okay, it's actually this one is actually not written like this. Actually, it's we simply write it is in Roman numerals actually. So it's like this type 1. Okay, type 1 and type 2. Okay, so outcomes and the type 1 and type 2 errors. This is the topic for today. So basically what I would just say is that basically whenever we just perform a hypothesis test, right, in that basically we have four possible outcomes. Okay, in that whenever we just perform a hypothesis test, so in that basically we have four possible outcomes. Right, now that all possible outcomes I am going to discuss with you right now, but before that I would be like summarizing all the four outcomes into a very short table. Okay, let me firstly write down all the four like things which we have, all the four ones. After that I would summarize that in the table. Fine, let's go on with the things for you. So my first thing says that if the decision the decision is to not reject, okay, just let me write it the correct spelling. If the decision is to not reject H naught. Okay, the decision is to not reject H naught when the fact H naught is true. So that is basically my correct decision. Okay, that is basically my correct decision. So if you have made a decision not to reject H naught, when the fact is that the value for the H naught which you have got, that is absolutely true. So in that case basically you are making the very correct decision. Okay, this is the first thing. Moving towards the second outcome and second condition which we have here. Now the second one is the decision is to reject H naught. The decision is to reject the value for the H naught which you have find it out, right? The decision is to reject H naught when in fact the H naught is true. Okay, the H naught is true. So in this case basically you are trying to make a error. Okay, so first of all the first thing that comes here is that it is your incorrect decision. Okay, so when decision is incorrect, then there are two cases, either the type 1 error or the type 2 error. Okay, so first of all this is your incorrect decision, and after that this will lie into your type 1 error. Okay, it will lie into the category of type 1 error. So make sure that whenever you have made a decision to reject H naught, and if the fact is that H naught is true, so never make that decision. Okay, never reject H naught. So whenever the value for H naught is true, do not reject it. If you are going to do that, in that case basically you are taking your incorrect decision, and that will actually lie under your type 1 error. Okay, what is actually type 1, what is actually type 2, that I would be explaining in a little while. But for now understand that basically if you are making a decision like this, then it is a type 1 error. Moving towards the very third condition. Now my third condition says that if the decision actually which you have made, if the decision is to not reject H naught, is to not reject H naught. If you had made a decision not to reject the H naught, okay, when in fact H naught is false, H naught is false. When the value for H naught is false, then also you have made a decision that you will not reject it. So in this case also this is your incorrect. Okay, just let me write the correct spelling. This is also your incorrect decision. Okay, it is your incorrect decision. And it actually lies under the type 2 error. Type 2 error, not the type 1. Type 1 was the previous one. It actually lies under your type 2 error. Right? So if the decision is not to reject H naught, when the fact is that the value for H naught is false. So in that case, basically, you are making the incorrect decision. That means you are making a type 2 error. Okay, and the fourth thing, the very fourth condition goes here is that the decision, like the decision which you have made, so the decision is to reject H naught when in fact H naught is false. So now if you have made a decision to reject H naught when in fact the value for H naught is false, so this is actually now your correct decision when the value for H naught is false. So you had simply thought that, okay, I would just reject this value. So this is your correct decision. Let me just write that decision here. After that, I have one more thing to let you know. Yeah, so this is your correct decision. And basically, when you have made this type of correct decision, so basically we just give it another name as well. So when you have made this type of correct decision, so we just call it as correct decision whose probability, PRO, simply writing it in short form, so whose probability is called the power of the test. Okay, whose probability is called the power of the test, right? So whenever your decision is to reject H naught and when the H naught value is false, so in that case basically you are making correct decision whose probability is called the power of the test, right? So this is the thing which just comes here for making out the decisions. Now if I just want to write this thing in a very short way, in a very simple table, if I just want to write this thing, so I would be just making out one table here, let's say this one, and let me just take one color so that I can just write inside it. Fine. So here comes my action, that basically what thing I am performing, and here comes my H naught is actually, and here comes again the same thing which is here. Okay, I would just like separate these things with the help of a line, so that they actually do not get messed up with each other. Okay, one more line, I just want to separate it like this as well, right? Okay, now my first condition goes here that my action is nothing when let's say my condition here is H naught is actually true, and here I just say that H naught is actually false, right? So action, if I just say if I do not reject H naught, then if H naught is actually correct, that is if H naught value is actually true, then that is my correct outcome, that is my correct decision which I have made, that is my correct outcome. And if I do not reject H naught and H naught is actually false, let me just write that here as well, H naught is actually, okay, if H naught is actually false and I'm also not rejecting the H naught value, then this is basically comes under my incorrect outcome. Simply write incorrect, not outcome as well. Okay, it is my incorrect outcome. Now second thing comes that if I reject H naught, okay, if I reject H naught when the value for my H naught is actually true, then in this case basically it would be coming my incorrect decision, and that comes under my type 1 error. Okay, and when I reject the value of H naught and when the value of H naught is false and I reject it, then this comes under the correct outcome. Okay, it comes under the correct outcome. And here when I have just written incorrect, when I'm not rejecting the value for H naught, even it is false, so this comes under the condition, and that is basically my type 2 error. I would just write that type 2 here as well. Okay, so I hope you just got the idea from this table as well. It is in a very short way that my actions are do not reject H naught when my H naught value is actually correct. So that is my correct outcome. Okay, but do not reject H naught when my H naught value is actually false. So that is my incorrect outcome, and it comes under the type 2 error. Okay. Second condition comes that I am rejecting the H naught value when the value is true. So this is also my incorrect outcome. So that is my type 1 error. and I'm just saying that reject H naught when H naught value is actually not correct, then this is my correct decision which I am making, right? So I hope that basically you have got a fair and a clear idea first regarding that what is a correct decision and what is not a correct decision. So if you are making correct decision, that is well and good, and if you are not making, then basically which type of error you are making, that is type 1 or type 2, or what types of error actually you are making, right? Now let's see regarding the type 1 and type 2 errors which we have here. Okay, let's see that what are actually type 1 and type 2 errors. So let me just come down. I will just tell you in a brief way, and the discussion for it in a detail will be carried on to the next video. Okay, right. So basically, for representing the type 1 and type 2 errors, we have Greek letters, and that are basically alpha and beta. Okay, so alpha basically refers to my type 1 error, and beta actually refers to my type 2 error. First of all, keep this thing in mind, okay? That whenever I'm just writing alpha, so that is basically referring to my type 1 error, and beta is actually referring to my type 2 error. Fine? Now, what I just meant from alpha, what I just meant from type 1 error. So, let me just take a color and write it down here, that what I just can say from my type 1 error. So, you just understand that what is actually the denotions, right? So, I would just not write that again. So alpha, and that is my type 1. So alpha, and here I will be writing my type 1. Okay. So okay, I'm just not writing simply writing type 1. I would just write probability of type 1. Okay, just 1 second. Here it goes, the probability for type 1 error. Okay, probability for type 1 error. So what it is this? It is basically the probability. So my type 1 error goes like it is the probability of rejecting. Okay, it is basically the probability of rejecting the null hypothesis, the null hypothesis. I would simply write hypo, not full, I'm just not going to write here. So, when I'm just taking my type 1 error, so this type 1 error is actually the probability of rejecting the null hypothesis when the null hypothesis is true. Okay, this is my type 1 error. My type 1 error says that it is the probability of rejecting the null hypothesis when the null hypothesis is true. Okay, this is my type 1 error which comes here. Moving towards my type 2 error which we have here. So I just told you that type 2 error is represented by beta, right? Let me add on this beta here, and let me just put the probability of type 2. Okay, type, and this 2 goes here. So my type 2 says that it is the probability. So it is the probability of not rejecting the null hypothesis, basically beta, that is my type 2. It is the probability of not rejecting the null hypothesis when the null hypothesis is false. Okay, is false. So this comes under my type 2 error, which is that the probability of not rejecting the null hypothesis when the null hypothesis is false. So these are the two types of errors which we have here under this outcomes and the type 1 and type 2 errors. So basically these are the two types which you should follow, and H naught is basically my null hypothesis, right? So I hope I made this thing very clear to you, that basically what it is and what are the things that come under, what is the decisions and what is the chart actually this means, how to understand it, and how to recognize that you are making type 1 or type 2 errors, right? So this is all for this video. Till then, thank you and take care.